I fall asleep.
I fall asleep in London's.
Okay, welcome to our city council meeting tonight, December 13th, 2017. We will begin with an invocation by Councilman Rowley and then have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Hartley.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful this evening to be met together as a city council and staff and community members. We thank thee for the opportunity we have to meet in freedom. We thank thee for those who make that freedom possible and pray that thou bless them. We pray tonight that as we make our deliberations, we will be able to do that which is best for this community. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will now move on to our agenda order approval. We need to remove item number 16. That was the closed session. It wasn't supposed to be on the agenda. So.
Motion to remove item number 16 from the agenda.
And then approve the rest.
And approve the rest.
Mayor, we have some folks here that are exceptionally interested in number 17 that have other obligations later in the evening. I wondered if we could move it up some on the action agenda to, like, say, number 12.
To number 12.
Either way, the other items I would think wouldn't take a long
Yeah, I think we'll get through everything pretty quickly.
time.
I would second that motion to move it up.
I mean, it's up to you guys. You just need to tell me where you'd want it to go.
Up to 12. Make it number 12.
So remove item 16 and move item number 17 up to the beginning of the action agenda.
That's right.
All right. We have a motion and a second with that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will then go to council business.
I have two things. I brought a little video. Pretty exciting. We don't have a lot of water yet this year. We're really need to get some moisture, but we've got they're doing some repairs on Coal Creek at the aviation split, and they're running all the water north, and some of it's getting up to Rush Lake, which is being wasted, and we're actually recharging in Schmidt Pit right now with some. And I took a little video today. We don't have a lot yet, but we're getting some, and Kit's going to play that video just to show you what's going on. And that's one of the things we've been working on this year with recharge. And it just shows a little bit of what's going on.
Oh, cool.
Cool, clear water.
Great.
It's percolating very nicely, and we've actually put a data gauge in the stream flow to measure how many feet per second, CFS, and measuring how much water is actually going in. So that's that little device right there on the two poles. So we just installed one here, and we also installed one out at the Quichapa recharge project we've got going. So, and that's important so we can show the state engineer what we're putting back in the ground so we can get credit for it. So, thank you, Kit.
Thanks for sharing.
That's great.
Did you have two items you said?
Yeah, the second is this is Fred Rowley's last meeting as a city councilman. I wanted to just thank him for his service and tell him what a good friend he's become and what an asset he has been to the city. I don't know that I've ever met anybody that's a deeper thinker but has fun, that keeps things light but serious. And I just want to thank him. He's become like a brother to me, and I love him with all my heart and appreciate what he's done for the city.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. As I wrote in the mayor's newsletter, it's been a singular honor, and it's been a pleasure to serve, and I've made a whole lot of new friends, and well, probably a couple of new enemies. I don't know, but it has been a great honor to be of service to the people of this community, and I thank you for that.
Well, then we'll just do this right now. So we'll just cut you off.
Whoa.
So on behalf of the city and the staff and everyone, we just want to give you this small token.
A wristwatch.
It is a wristwatch. Thank
Heck
you
of a
for
band
your
you need on that.
Thank you, Mayor. That is beautiful.
Pose for picture.
With the mayor would want a picture?
You guys come out here like,
That seems,
I just gave my key to the mayor because she didn't trust, Scott hasn't been sworn in yet.
I've been sworn at.
somewhere at.
Thank you very
Already,
much.
huh?
That is beautiful.
That comes later.
I'll look at this every Wednesday night at
All right.
5:30 and think about how you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Without your supervision.
But you could just watch us online.
Yeah,
All right.
I could.
Are there any other council comments? Okay, then we'll move on. Obviously, this is the last meeting of the year. Our next city council meeting will be January 3rd, and the swearing in will take place January 2nd at noon. So now we'll move on to staff comments with, where is Jeremy? Or, wow, Trevor. All right. I was like, Kathy.
Trevor McDonald with the Employee Association Committee. I'm filling in for Jeremy. He is out of town. The Employee Association Committee recognizes Kathy McFarland as the Employee of the Month for December. Kathy has worked very hard over the past several months to get our online timekeeping up and running. She has worked closely with Cassell, that's the vendor that does the timekeeping software, to get issues resolved in a timely manner. And we are one of the first cities to use this particular timekeeping method, so it hasn't been easy. On top of the new program, she has stayed current on her reports and everything else. Kathy is a vital part of our department, the finance department, and I would add the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been here 4 years and no one's ever answered if there's money in that envelope. And look, they're still not answering. Congratulations. Yeah, just give me a thumbs up or down when you get back to your seat.
If there's not, are you gonna put some in?
Oh, that's just like money. Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, now I know I can finally quit.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other staff comments? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to our public agenda with our public comment portion. If there is anyone here that would like to address the council about an item not on the agenda, now is your opportunity. If it's about an item that's on the agenda, then we can discuss it when we get to it so the topic and conversation is relevant. So if there is anyone that would like to address the council, now is your opportunity. Just make sure you state your name.
Where is Mr. Bittman tonight?
He is excused for this evening.
Okay.
Mr.
So-
Jett
Wondered if he had an excuse.
celebrated.
Yeah, Mr. Paul Bittman, he can't be here tonight, so.
Mr. Jett here celebrated his birthday Monday, so he does look older.
I feel older, but there's not much. You have two choices in life: live or not. Good evening, Tom Jett.
I've been watching and participating in our local government for around 20 years now. And I was contemplating this last week, what a massive change that we've had in our economy from approximately 2008 to 2017. And I've watched the people of this community weather the storm with dignity from 2008 to 2017. And it's amazing to watch how this community rallied together and has stayed together. And it's something to be proud of, to watch this community, you know, as it stands, and it stands as one. And I'm really proud to call myself a Cedar City person. So thank you, and Merry Christmas to all in this town. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Christmas to you, Tom. Belatedly, yeah.
Is there anyone else? No. All right, then we will move on with our business agenda, put our public portion first, and the consent agenda. Item number 1, approval of minutes dated November 15th and 29th, 2017. Approval of bills dated December 11th, 2017. Approved granting an access easement across city property to the properties located at 304 South and 330 South on Spring Canyon Road. Approved vicinity plan for Sycamore Trails Phase 3 PUD. Approved bid for Yarrow Scout Construction in the amount of $209,000 for the South Tank Recoding Phase 3 project. Approved bid from Yarrow Construction Project in the amount of $646,487.66 for the Quichapaw Well number 1 replacement well house and equipment project. Approved an agreement with Dorset Technologies in the amount of $30,335.34 for the SCADA system at Quichapaw Well number 1. Approve an electrical service agreement with Rocky Mountain Power for Quichapaw Well number 1. Approve granting a public utility easement to Rocky Mountain Power to run a power line across city property to Quichapaw Well number 1. Quichapaw Well number 1's really popular this week.
We should all go out there.
Yes. Approve purchase of a new vehicle in the amount of $69,000 using wildland money. Approve the 2018 council meeting schedule.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now we will have our item number 17. Consider an ordinance changing the zone ordinance parking for single occupancy bedrooms from 0.85 to 0.65 per bedroom.
Mayor, before we get into that item, I just want to disclose that I have a family member that could be affected by this change. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to talk about the tortilla soup I made Tuesday night.
You know, even on your last meeting, sorry.
There is a point, so hang with me here.
Okay, yeah.
I put it in the Revereware pan and cooked it. Then I was to take it to a party, and I put it in a bigger thing to hold it. And when I put it in there, I said, look at that. It doesn't look like very much soup. I could have put more in. It would have been nice. But as I drove down the road, I was grateful that I hadn't filled it to the very top, because it would have been all over my car. So we've got this Goldilocks point thing at this parking for the students. We don't want to be wasting good space for no reason, but we want to leave a little bit of a buffer for those times when things are a little jostly. And Kit sent out a thing today. I don't know what on earth, Kit. 4:30 in the morning. Come on now. He's going to go to sleep right in the middle of my tortilla soup speech. But he went over and studied the issue at the units that we have that are at the reduced parking rate, and saw that 0.6 was taking care of the needs of all of those places. He then suggested to us that we put in a buffer, and that's what that little top of the pan would be, the same kind of a thing, between 0.7 and 0.75. To me, I would like to help the university and those who are providing these living spaces for the students to give them as much soup in the pot as we can get, so that it benefits the students, it benefits the best use of the property. And I believe, because if we do this correctly, it will benefit the community by keeping cars off the neighborhood streets. And I am comfortable with the point 7 that Kit said. It's not what the developers are asking, but I think it gives us that buffer. I think that no matter what design is done, the fire chief needs to, in the sketch meetings, make sure he is comfortable with the layout of the parking so that he can get what he needs. So that's where I'm at on this, and to the point almost that I would make a motion, but I think probably there are others who want to say things. But I would like to hear you folks' opinions on what number, where you're at.
Well, first of all, I want to recognize the staff and all of my fellow council members have put a tremendous amount of time into this. And as they looked at it, there's actually a draft ordinance that they have prepared that addresses a lot of the items that the builders first went to the Planning Commission and the sketch committees for. And it makes me a little nervous I don't think the parking is a separate issue from the other things that the city was wanting to recommend. So if we push through a parking thing, it's like, well, what happens to all of this draft that we've got in the works? Does that just go out the window? Because obviously we can't give the concessions that we were giving in there, plus reduce the parking down to this level. The other thing, I think it became very evident that there's probably 3 parking issues. I firmly believe the student housing isn't, the apartments, the new housing is not causing the issues. There's a lot of residential, single-family dwellings that's got too many kids, too many cars in. And then we've also got the students that are just going to class and parking in the neighborhoods. Because if I've done a lot of independent study on my own since we've been talking about this, and at night, if you drive around, there's really not an issue only in little places around where these little residential dwellings are. And so I think the city's determined that as soon as we address this for the developers and the apartment housing, we're going to move to these others and try and see if we can't work with SUU, work with some enforcement and whatnot to resolve the issues for the neighborhoods surrounding SUU. So I don't want the people that are here to talk about the housing and whatnot in the neighborhoods to think that we're ignoring you or not. But I think it's separate of what's on the table right now. I just worry if we pass something, will we lose the momentum to fix some of the issues that are on the table to work with the builders. We did an extensive study 2 years ago and come up with the 0.85. Kit has gone, to the gateway this week and done kind of a quick independent study, but is 1 unit enough to base an ordinance change on? I don't know. I don't feel real comfortable with that. I don't think the 1.3 is a simple math equation the way it's being presented. I think there's different dynamics that affect a 0.85 single occupancy unit. I think if they are coming, they're paying for a single bedroom, there's a good chance they're bringing a car, and they're also, if they're in their own room, they're probably not sharing a car either. So I think there's some other dynamics that it's not just divide the 1.3 with a wall and it's 0.65. So I just think we need to look at a long-term sustainability. I worry about trying to push through an ordinance to accommodate a couple of projects. We've talked about the process, what it would take to get this new ordinance through. And by January 24th, we could be voting on the big picture instead of just a parking issue tonight. So those are just kind of my thoughts on this as we've worked through it.
And I was going to say too, Terry, that I agree with you that we need to set some sort of a date certain when the rest of the setbacks and the heights and all of that, we discuss that so that doesn't drag on interminably as well. And you think January 24th would, yeah.
So we're not talking a long time period to kind of package this in a whole deal.
I have been impressed with how everybody has finally, or we're finally looking at each other in the eye and we're talking to each other, and a lot has happened in that context. I really like that all the parties are working together to solve this problem. I too don't know the magic number. You've heard my reservations about a number that's too low and makes us Provo 2. You know, I sent 6 kids to BYU, and I got written up 3 times just visiting.
Scofflaw.
That's right. That's right. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to become that. But it's been nice to meet with the party and to see where we can go with this in terms of getting the fire department what they need to make us safe. With sprinkler systems and commercial alarm systems and, okay, I forgot the term already, Chief. Fire department connection out front, and some enforcement so that put teeth in this, so that when we do set up the parking, we've got enforcement to make sure that the people are staying out of fire lanes and things like that, and we can tie that to business licenses and other things. All of that has been discussed. Kit has thrown out his number. I would just like it all to get traction at the same time. Yeah. And to do it in a logical, combined ordinance. That's.
Would you be comfortable with the 0.7 with the commercial fire alarm and the contracts and things?
I would be more comfortable. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know how we do a motion tonight to include all that I see coming together, like the enforcement part. I had separate conversations with Tyler, and we think we can do that on private property if it's business property and there's a business license. And I cheer that. I think that's great. We put teeth into this. But anyway, yeah, I'm more comfortable.
Approve something like that, you would be approving all of it without ever seeing what the language of what you would be
Yeah, you're right.
blindly approving.
You're right.
Yeah. Well, but everything's contingent on parking. So whether you're talking building height or any of the other issues that were setbacks, everything hinges on parking. So, I mean, the university, and part of this thing is time is of the essence. They need housing now, and they're getting behind on housing. And if we delay too long, these developers, they can't start in time to be done with their projects in time for the fall season of college, and it's important. But and Marvin Dodge was here, and he said, look, if we don't let the private sector take care of this need we have, then the university will call DFCM and they'll come down and build the housing. They'll do a 0.5, which they did at Eccles.
Yep, I'll let you speak before they vote. So
or 5.5, whatever it is. But they'll come down and they'll build the housing, and we receive no property tax from those buildings. And a lot of those guys, they bring out of town contractors and subcontractors, and we miss out on the work in Cedar City. So that's one of the concerns I have.
Yeah, it's not as simple of them making a phone call and they show
I know
up with
that.
a contractor.
Yeah,
So,
so.
I mean, it's a process.
Where are you at, Ron?
Terry's expressed some of the views that I already had. I had a couple of questions, and one was, Tyler, on this draft, are we still in a lot of discussion on it, or was the draft pretty much the final consensus?
I wouldn't say it was set in stone, but when staff left our last meeting, we were all comfortable with what we'd recommended, and we shared those recommendations with some of the developers that we met with last week.
Okay, and that's kind of where we were headed with the date wise. I figured that out, but it'd have to get on sketch next Thursday to meet the planning commissions and the city council to have the final approval by the 24th of January. I figured that out, and so that's where that figure came from. And I think there's a lot of merit in that, and a lot of things have been brought up from the discussion. I think we've learned lots of things. Another question I had was, and Terry mentioned that old houses are really the problem, and I agree with that, because most of the old homes within the university zone have been built, some of them in the 30s or whenever, and most of those bedroom sizes are 90 to 100 square feet anyway. And I checked on a few that have 2 students in those, so they have 6 students in a 3-bedroom, and the parking space allowed even at our 1.3 is only 4. And most of those, all 6 students have cars. So I agree that I think that's where the major problem is, and that's why I have more issues with jamming something through. I'm really not opposed to the proposals of the developers and their student housing that they're proposing, with some things that have been worked into the draft ordinance and some other things. I think as a package deal, I think we need to really look at that, because sometimes we get burned down the road when we piecemeal. And so I like that approach. And let's see. So one other question, Tyler, was, if we were to pass a reduction in, from in this case, I'm talking about older homes in the zone that are at 1.3 per bedroom. What happens to those? Can that owner come back and say, okay, I can go to the 0.7 or whatever is decided?
Yeah. So if we change the parking, this would apply to all new developments that come in and get approved.
New development.
Okay, that was my next question.
Everything
If we
gets
put it
grandfathered.
after a specific date,
Within that overlay zone we're talking.
Uh-huh.
yeah, in the overlay zone.
So you're
Okay.
saying a guy who has a house there couldn't retroactively bring in more cars?
But if he wanted to go in and got more space now and he wants to do an addition, and then he'd qualify under our new ordinance.
Okay, yeah.
And we are looking at, after the beginning of the year, when school gets back in and we can see where some of these are, the housing, the houses that have tons of cars in front of them, working on coming up with a project on how to identify that, contact landlords, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think this discussion's brought that out. I mean,
Yeah,
that,
so
that really put a focus on, that's why it's good to discuss things for a while and come up with, the best ideas for the future.
So, Kit, could you talk about your study? And then I'd like to also ask Brent Drew if he could talk about, because we've got 2 years of data that you've collected, Brent, over the years with some things you've done, and maybe if both of you could address, Kit, maybe what you've done, this week with your study, and then maybe Brent, could you talk about?
Okay, well, my study was done on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday night, or no, I guess it was, mornings. And I went out there and just counted the cars that were in the North Gateway Apartments. Counted a couple on the streets, and of course all the cars in the parking lot. Even went over to the auxiliary parking lot, and Brent's black truck was over there, so I included it. And one thing I did kind of see as I did the numbers from Monday to today, I seen a kind of a downward trend of the number of cars in there. When I first started, thought of doing this study during finals, I thought, that's probably a good time because all the students are there, but that's maybe just for the first day. And then as soon as the students that get their finals done, they're heading for home. And I think that's kind of what I seen in the study. That was, I don't think that was a really good, perfect representation of what you might see, in the middle of a semester when all the students are there. But I came up after I got all the numbers averaged. There was about, I came up with a 0.6 parking spaces per bed. And then I put 0.5 in there for snow removal, for snow storage, where they store the snow when they're plowing their lots. And then also included some in that 0.5 for visitor parking. I think that's kind of got lost in the mix here. I'm not sure it's included in the number now that we're proposing between the 0.7 and 0.75. I imagine there still is some are going to be some spaces left for those type of things for the snow storage and for visitor parking. So, but my recommendation, as I wrote in my email, is somewhere between 0.7 and 0.75. I think with the effect that the trend was having on the number of students in the apartments and a few other conditions, I think those are fair numbers. Like I said, I'm not sure how much of those numbers is the snow storage and visitor parking. So, but that's my recommendation, somewhere between 0.7 and 0.75.
Thanks, Kip.
Brent True with Levitt Land and Investment. I feel terrible with calling it studies because, like I said, it was just me going in parking lots late at night, and not just our projects, but some other around the universities. But when Kit sent his numbers out, I was a little shocked on there too, because I said I didn't go as low as 0.6 with mine. I kind of found ours more in the 0.64 and the 0.65, depending on which ones I ran and during what time. The month that we did the biggest study was this March, where we went out there and really had some really strange outlier numbers, because we went as low as 48 empty spaces in that project. Now, none of these days were Saturdays or Sundays. I did take those off from going out there. And by the way, I would like to report that I did look up Kid on the cameras, and he was there. So,
we
just so you know, Kid, I
accountability.
checked
Good.
that out.
On a skateboard?
No, he wasn't. He's
Oh,
pretty dark. He was dressed pretty darkly. Anyway, as during that month of March, like I said, we had a low of 48, and then we had the high of 11 spaces there on a Tuesday night on an 11th. And we could not figure out what was going on there, unless it was some kind of great party or whatever. But that was all done at 2 a.m. And we averaged around between, and this was just in our parking that is by the building. This is not the extra spaces where there is a very nice black truck there that right after we said nobody ever parked there, now there's a black truck there for the past probably 2 weeks. So, but I still think that parking could be more applicable to Gateway East than it is to Gateway North, using that space. But we averaged around 26 empty spaces over at our apartment building there. Now, the first year, we probably had a little bit less because we were much higher on foreign students staying in those apartment complexes. There's 140 rooms in there. All 140 are still full for both years. This year, we had a lot of the international students that were staying there go over to Gateway East because we tried to open that in December of 2016. It didn't quite work out. So this year, it's really been going more. It was opened in the fall, and a lot of them went over to that newer project. Again, the main issue we've had there is we just haven't found the numbers to suggest the 0.85 is a successful number, other than I've got this great big park, 28 spaces over by Gateway East, that is a very nice parking lot for one large truck.
Brent, did you, as you were filling these, do any sort of selecting tenants by if they had a car or not, or was it?
It was really who came in, because we do have the three ladies there that take set everybody up, and they said they would come in and they request that is the most expensive apartment. That one, is a little higher than everything else for the single rooms there. They do ask on the application there if they have a car or not, and they'll look at that.
Okay, this is what you guys have been careful about making sure you don't overdo things. Some concern has been, well, maybe there's a landlord who will just let in anybody and not, but as far as it was just first come, first serve kind of deal. You didn't say, well, we're only going to allow a blank number of cars and we won't accept you now because you have a car.
We did ask them to put down on the paper, do you have a car, and the license number and those type of things.
But was that figured into
not on the initial numbers when we were putting the people in there.
Thank you.
No.
Okay. We will allow some brief public comments. If it's something new that hasn't been said in the last 3 meetings we've had, new information, then feel free to come up. Just make sure you state your name.
Mayor and City Council members, my name is Janet McCrae, and I live at 265 South 200 West. And I would ask that if you do approve this parking reduction, that you approve as part of that ordinance a residential parking only within the overlay district. We live right across from the Levitt Group, and during the day, every day, Monday through Friday, there are students and faculty members parking on our street, as well as people going to meetings at the university. And so if you do decide to reduce the parking, it would be really helpful for us to have residential parking only by permit, and we have a permit in our car. When I have something at my house, I have to put a car out there as a place card holder when people come to my house. And then when they get there, I run out and move the car, put it in my driveway so that they can park there. So I would like to respectfully request that you include that as part of the ordinance if you do approve that reduction. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Adam Hahn. I've listened to all these meetings, and I think there's something that we need to look at, and that is that the university is not a good neighbor. The university has built all these buildings and they've expanded like they have, but they've done nothing for parking. And so moving forward, all these complaints about the parking on these streets, on 200 West and Dewey Avenue and all these streets, I hear the same thing, and that is during school hours, you cannot park. She sees faculty and she sees students. The university needs to be a better neighbor, and they need to force their students and their faculty to park on school property. And how they do that, I don't know, but that needs to be a conversation between the city and the university. They want to make themselves out to be a vital part of this community. But if they're not being a good neighbor to their neighbors, then they're not vital. And they could be, there's things that we could do to make their life more miserable, like they're making these people's lives miserable. While I support this reduction in parking, I think that what's being said is that that this is going to affect their the way that they live. It's going to affect their parking at their streets. And I don't think that's a fact. I think that what I'm hearing at every one of these meetings is that the parking that's affecting them is students and faculty parking during school hours and not the residents. And this change would only affect residents of new structures, not the faculty and not the students.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
and with that, I mean, there are two kind of separate issues that have come up through this of the parking for new apartment complexes and ensuring that there is sufficient parking for the residents of the new complexes to be self-sustaining. There's also the issue of parking on the roads while students are in class or teachers or any of that. And we all know that there are kind of two separate issues. The parking on the streets and all of that, we're going to work on enforcement and some of those other things and speak with the university. And the housing of multiple students in the older housing that are rentals, all of that's a whole nother issue that's not the parking for this new construction. So if it deals with that other issue of the streets and all of that, we're going to try to get to that at the beginning of the year to start working on that side of the issue. This is just for the new construction to try to keep their parking self-sustaining.
Thank you. My name's Scott Hunt. Again, I just have 4 buildings in this area. And I've gotten to know more about parking in the last 2 weeks than I ever wanted to. The name Thunderbird Landing kept coming up before, and so I didn't even know where it was. I ran to it. They're right on the edge of the 2-block thing. They'll be right in the middle if it extends to a quarter. I went there and I met with the managers for a half hour. Very nice couple. That project, just to refresh your memory, should have gone in at 0.85, and they got some special variance to go in at 0.75. These managers know exactly how many students have cars. They have the license number of every student that has a car. They have signs up saying no guest parking because they don't have spaces for guests to park. The guests have to park out on the street. One night every week, this couple goes out and checks every license plate. And at night, they always have, they average 5 guest cars in their spaces that they want to have out on the street. And they just write them a little ticket that has no meaning, you know. But so at any given time at night, they have 5 extra cars that aren't theirs. These are their numbers. They have 126 beds plus the managers. Of those 126, 109 have cars. Getting the variance, they only needed to have 99 spaces. So every single night, they have 10 spaces out on the road plus the guests. So please do not tell me that parking does not overlap into neighborhood parking. They said when there's on certain nights, it wraps around the block, all of the guests and the people there. That 99, if they would have done it at the 0.85, which people here thinks, okay, I still think 0.85 is a little low after all the research I've done. If they would have done it at 0.85, they would have needed 108 spaces for their 109 cars. So they still would have been 1 car short, 1 space short, not including guests. Imagine how many guests 126 college students have, especially on weekends. If they would do it at the 0.65, which they're trying to get it down to, they would need 83 spaces for their 109 cars. I love this little gateway study everybody goes to.
I personally don't trust a developer to be able to come in and say, here's a picture of my parking lot. I don't know how they vetted those guests like you were saying. I have no trust that they vetted those students without saying, okay, let's this first couple of years have a few less cars because we're trying to save a bunch of money on future developments. I have no problem believing that. Then I left that development and I went to Carson Apartments, which I believe is Levitt owned, on 450 West. It's about a block south of the university on 450 West, right next to Joe Jackson, retired Judge Joe Jackson's house. No manager's apartment. So I talked to 3 individual girls. I assume it's all girls, I don't know. I talked to 3 individual girls as they came out of the apartments, and I felt a little creepy doing it, so I didn't ask their names and stuff. And so, but very easily, can any of you go do this? All 3 girls said every night there is not enough parking. This would have been done at the 1.3. It's about a 5-year-old apartment. Correct me if I'm wrong. It should have been done at the 1.3 ratio, which is 0.65. All 3 said, no, every night somebody's parking out on the street. There's a ton of cars on the street from this complex. One of the girls told me, she was heading to school. She goes, my car is 1 block south of here. I parked there last night at 10 o'clock. It was the closest space I could get. And I walked by myself at 10 o'clock, a full block to my apartment. These are the people trying to lower the parking ratio in this. Joe Jackson's daughter, Michelle Garrett, who lives next door, said every night they have cars parked in front of their house from this apartment that's only 5 years old in Cedar City. It crosses to the street. It is not just the houses. I agree that the majority is the houses, but it is not just the houses. It crosses to the street.
This is how far south?
The actual address is 311 South. And so it's just 1 block away from the university. And this lady parked all the way down on the close to 400 South is where she said her car was at that point. She just left it there and walked, and then the next day she was going to school. Very easily verified by any of you. Again, I normally would have liked to have gotten their names and stuff, but I did feel a little creepy. And then we heard several times in here some of these higher officials at the university saying that it's set 0.5 to if they come in and do it. That just didn't smell right to me. So I called up and I got a hold of Rich Ammon at the Utah System of Higher Education and the Board of Regents building in Salt Lake City. He went over the bond. I'd also heard a bunch of things that the school was bonded too much and they couldn't get more things. So I asked him that, and he goes, no, they've got $14.4 million in bonds that won't be paid off till 2033, but they could still get another building even with that much bonding if they showed it. You know, it'd just be like you have too much on your credit, but you could still probably get another credit card. But then he did tell me they do not control the parking. That is done by the individual universities. And so SUU claims they're such great neighbors to everybody that I'm just would hope that they would put in the parking that the city would like them to put in. They don't have to put in the parking, but if they're claiming they're great neighbors, it seems like they would. I also spent quite a bit of time with John Willis. In the other meetings, I gave you a list where I had talked to every zoning person in all the cities with universities. I just put a link. I didn't put a name. I put a link for St. George because I could never get a hold of them. So I put a link to what their zoning regulation was. I actually got a hold of him with him yesterday, and he is responsible for writing Dixie's code, which is a very good code. It's one-to-one. It's very well thought out. He's said he spent a lot of time. He studied many universities, talked to many people. I told him we were at 0.85 and developers were trying to lower it. He chuckled like everybody else did. And if I were appointed czar to handle parking, is that possible, Mayor? Could you do that for me?
My recommendation would be, I could be convinced to keep the 0.85. Get rid of that 1.3, which is ridiculous, and get that to 0.85 per bed. But in addition to the 0.85, have 0.85, like I said on that, what's the name of that one? 0.85 on the Thunderbird Landing is still one space short for that project. But I'd be convinced that 0.85 looks like it might be right around where the students need, but then you have to have additional spaces for the guest parking.
Mr. Hunt, I'm
Besides
curious about your studies. I mean, so you take Willowbrook and some of these other developments that have been built a long time, and they're 1.3, they're just a, shared room.
Uh-huh.
The only difference, they don't have a wall between the kids.
Yeah, so 1.3 is too small.
Have those been doing okay? They're at 0.65.
I don't think this is my job. I think the
You want to
planning
be the
commission.
czar. I mean,
The planning commission, yeah, I would, and then I'd spend a lot of time doing it. I think the planning commission shirked its duty by kicking this up to you guys. You guys should be mad at the planning committee. You voted not to have it sent up. I commend you for that. The other people on the planning committee, we were sitting back there and I'm going, oh, well, there's no way they're going to vote this up. It was like my O.J. Simpson verdict moment when they kicked it up to you guys.
So my
All
question,
this
Mr.
planning
Hunt,
should have been done. You're asking me questions that the
0.65
planning should have done.
working? They've been there a long time. That's a 0.65. It's the same thing. Only they working?
I have a full-time job and this wasn't my job to do this. I don't even know where Willowbrook is. Never even heard of Willowbrook. So I could not tell you that. I went to 2. I only studied 2. Those 2 completely contradicted whatever landing, or what is the name of that gateway. And well, anyway, think of it this way. You live on a street where it's packed. Cars are hanging into your driveway every single day. You have a guest come, a friend come. He has to double park in your driveway because there's no parking. That's my life. Now, you find out your neighbor's going to convert his house to student housing, and he has 10 students coming in there in 5 bedrooms. 10 students. Imagine the guests that those 10 students are going to have. Almost every night, they're going to have a couple cars. How many spaces do you want that person to have?
We have
6.
We can't control that because it's an old house.
Not if he's converting to student housing.
They do it all the time.
Well, then you need to get some bite in this city council. But if he's converting, how many spaces would you approve him to have? Would you want him with his 10 students and all their guests to have 6.5 spaces? If you think you would, I really don't know. I got a counselor.
Mr. Hunt,
for
I
you.
want to see us get these kids out of these houses, out of basements where it's dangerous, where they have no egress, where they can die in fires, and get them in sprinklered buildings. And I think what we're trying to do accomplishes that.
Yeah, so I'm not talking a house. I'm talking this guy's converting his place to a 10-student apartment.
Right.
Tear down the house, build a new apartment.
And that'll solve
10 students.
That'll help solve the problem.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, he's your neighbor. Do you want him to have 6 spaces, or do you want him to have 10 spaces? I guarantee if you're not lying to yourself, you want him to have 10 spaces and then some more for his guests.
They don't have them. They're not there. They don't have the spaces.
Then he can't convert his house to apartments. It's simple. I heard these developers up here saying, oh, woe is me. I'm going, well, if you don't have the funding to do it, do something else. Our housing costs are more here than they are at BYU. How come our parking is less, but the developers can't build buildings? We've had some huge buildings built recently with the newer parking ratios in them, and they wouldn't build them if they were going to lose money. So just money should not be an issue for a developer's profit margin when we're talking about destroying Cedar City. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thunderbird Landing is an anomaly because everyone over there is going to drive. It's across the freeway.
It's right on the border of where you're trying to expand it even further. Not everybody's going to drive because quite a few don't have cars there. So what about the one that's 1 block?
Yeah.
Whatever the name of that one was that I said. It is 1 block, and they're parking a block away at night. I mean, and like I said, that gateway north, I would have loved to have seen how they screened the cars going into there. It just seems like they're so below everything else. Something's wrong there. Anyway, thank you.
Jack Hill is my name. How many of you read the news? Nobody? I want to read you something. The intention of lowering the parking requirements is to make it affordable and profitable for local contractors and developers to build new housing for the growing amount of SUU students, as opposed to the Utah Division of Facilities and Construction Management getting involved and using contractors from northern Utah. Continuing, allowing local contractors to help tackle this issue is the better option. Continuing, but because of the current parking requirements, it is less profitable for local contractors to build such housing, as it requires more land acquisition than double occupancy. Doesn't it sound a little greedy? Does to me. The other issue I want to bring up to you, you said we couldn't go over things that have been said before. The issue of enforcement, parking enforcement. I live at 200 West. I built the house in 1978, and I've been looking forward to coming to to Cedar City for 40 years. I cannot understand what the hell's going on around here. We get promised that one thing's going to happen with the university new facility that wiped out 200 South. Going to have nice, great big brick wall that would shut down the traffic. Believe me, I was told that by Fred Adams. Also, there would be a wrought iron gate down there at the where the facility sits now, and the widowers and the widows could go down there and avail themselves of a nice little park that would be built for those people that live on 200 West. That is the biggest batch of BS I was ever sold. Now, you want to know something that could really help parking? Enforcement. I have seen people double parked on 200 West. I've seen people parked the wrong way on 200 West. I've seen people park in my driveway on 200 West. I've seen people block my pickup truck so I couldn't get it out. They have a kid on one side and a kid on the other side, and I couldn't jockey it back and forth to get my truck out of the parking. We got a hell of a problem, folks. And one of the biggest problems is enforcement. The lady asked for decals for parking on 200 West. It doesn't work on 450. Monday night football, I went to Joe Jackson's house to watch the ball game with Joe. You know where I parked? Clear down the end of the block. Not on 450. I had to drive around the corner to find a parking place. If you think, believe me, oh shit.
Okay, that's
we
enough
got
of
real
that.
problems.
Thank you.
Mayor, let's just put this one in. Voted up or down here. I make a motion to reduce the parking to 0.7.
I second that.
All right, we will, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against?
Nay.
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 All right, that failed. And with that, we will move on to, probably should move my microphone back up. The public hearing for, back to item number 12, for the Community Development Block Grant Funding.
I'm Jan Park with Turn Community
Okay,
Services.
hold on for 2 seconds. Let me open the public hearing and all of that. Yeah, we just have to have it the official way for, and to give the council a little bit of information about this. So we'll have the public hearing for the community development block granted, and it's being considered for potential projects which funding may be applied for under the 2018 program. The grant money will be spent on projects primarily benefiting low and moderate income persons. The 5 county associations of government, which the city's a member, is expected to receive approximately $657,000 in this new program year. And the eligible activities that they're under the CDBG application, policies and procedure manual, or what the funding can go for. Some of these activities include construction of public works and facilities like water lines, sewer lines, fire stations, etc. There are, let's see, the city's received more than $2 million since 1982 from CDBG program. And it has, and they are part of our capital investment plan, the regional consolidated plan, which we'll hand a copy out to you guys here in just a second, which shows projects the city has identified as being needed in the community. So with that, now with the introduction of what it is, we can open our public hearing. And so if you now want to just restate your name and then any comments you have related to this.
Thanks. I was just anxious to get going. Thank you. I'm Jan Park with Turn Community Services. We support people with mental disabilities, intellectual challenges, and physical as well. We are asking the city to sponsor us for a CDBG grant, which won't be money out of your pocket. It'll be state to 5 county to the city, and you have to supervise the project. We would like to build 3 units that are ADA, and will be rented at 30% of the individual's income. These folks have $750 a month SSI, no housing vouchers, and they can't afford to compete with the college and the university students and everybody else. So we're trying to provide some lower than extremely low income housing for these folks. And we've done our due diligence. We've got most of the funds raised. We have loans from Moline Walker Housing Loan Fund on it, and we're finalizing. So it will be so well matched that we hope to construct it with hardly any mortgage left so that they can rent at 30%.
Okay.
Any questions?
Where are you going to build it? Have you identified?
Oh, it's on 315 South 200 East. We own a little house that's built in 1960. It's 2-story and it needs full renovation, electric and mechanic. So we'd rather blade it down and put these new apartments in. They'll be all ground level so that they don't require stairs. The folks can use them with wheelchairs. So it'll be a duplex with a single separate building that's 3 bedrooms. So the duplex will be 2 bed, 2 bath, and the single building with 3 bed, 2 bath. So that the combination of people, they get 1 bedroom apiece. We've met the parking requirements because we blended our lots together. So any other questions? We hope to have your support for it. And it's on the SIP and it's on the 1-year building plan. So
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many pounds of paper do you guys shred in a month?
Not enough to keep everybody working.
Really?
Yes, we'd like to have a few more customers, but I think we were producing 10 to 12 bales a month that we shipped out to be cycled into new paper products.
Be a good article.
Turn secure shredding. Okay, thank you for noting that. Okay.
Yes.
They do shred the city's stuff, right?
Yeah. And much of the university.
Me again. So I'm here for this community development block grant also. We would like to.
But you still have to state your name.
My name is Heidi Miller from the Cedar City Housing Authority. Thank you. And we would like to apply for the acquisition of low-income housing. So does anybody have any questions? No?
Do you have the? Oh yeah, there you go.
This is the capital improvement plan, which lists both of our projects.
So Mayor, we're not voting here. This is just a formality.
Yeah,
thing
this
to
is
go
the
through
public
in order
hearing.
In order to apply for it. Yeah, okay.
So you can check that box.
Yep.
Okay.
They have to submit the minutes from our city council meeting saying that they came, that we discussed all of this, that we went through.
We answered any questions you all have.
So
And does this only happen like once a year or
hey,
how
come
long?
up to the microphone and then you really can't answer the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the funding cycle comes around once a year, but it's a 5-county funding cycle. So it just depends. We don't always get one. So every time I come, I don't necessarily get a grant, but we try to apply as often as we can. As Jen mentioned, the tricky part usually is the match funding to go with it. And then you have time frames. So by the time you wait for everybody's application deadline and you apply for the match funding, then doesn't always work. So every time everybody comes doesn't mean we get funding. It merely means we're interested in applying, and then you compete. And 5-County has a booklet. If any of you want to see it, I'd be happy to show you it, but it scores all the applications and they tell you up front what they're gonna, what scores high, what scores low.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Heidi.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else that would like to address the council during our public hearing on this item? Okay. If not, then we will close the public hearing. We will now move on to item number 13, approve an ordinance amending the city's general land use plan from highway service to central commercial for property located on the south side of 200 north from 600 west to 700 west.
Bob.
Yes, Council Bob Platt, Plant and Plant Engineering. This was discussed last week, and I think everything was favorable. You understand where this is, just cross street from the North Elementary.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we will do.
We all second.
Basically, we just wanted you to
Third,
get up
fourth,
and
and
say your
fifth.
name and all of that. Okay, we'll start with Councilwoman Hartley.
Aye.
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 Aye. But before we move, Mayor, this is unrelated to what his is, but can we get on the agenda sometime? I would like to see us discuss the highway service, the zone on 200 North
Yeah.
as a future topic. And get that in there so we could, because it seems like
Yeah,
every
kinda
other
have some
time
guidance.
we're continually
Yes, we will.
just kind of see if there's some other areas we need to put in commercial or something and get rid of the highway service clear to Main Street.
We'll start looking at that.
Anyway,
I've just developed a sudden craving for sweet potato fries. I don't know.
I know where you can get those.
All right, item number 14, approve an ordinance amending the zone from highway service to central commercial for property located on the south side, 200 north from 600 west to 700 west.
Nah. No. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Adams.
aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you, Bob.
Bye, Bob.
Approve an agreement with Southwest Plumbing Supply to defer the construction of public improvements on 100 East.
What do you guys think?
So the agreement that you got in the packet, there was just a couple amendments that I needed to make that you haven't seen. One is the parcel number was incorrect, so I changed that. There was also a typo. And then there was one phrase where we referenced an entity, and we decided to change that just to say if the future owner of
Landowner.
of land over on 200 East instead of just an entity.
You guys on?
That's okay with.
Yeah, Ryan Nelson for Southwest Plumbing Supply. And yes, Tyler and I talked, and I'd been corresponding with Jonathan, and then we're in agreement with the changes that were made.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Aye.
Nope. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is the longest.
Sit here and
That was the longest second we've
drag
ever
out a
had.
little
You
bit.
guys sure left me hanging.
Yep.
Let you dangle out there.
Hey, who seconded that one?
Craig.
Craig.
Right now?
8:30.
Oh, man.
Oh, how's your crazy bone? Huh?